and then a couple in front to make sure it's cinched down. Then I hold it up and I get my scissor in right down to the cone head, and I'm going to trim it off. There'll be a little stub of leather part of the strip that sticks out, and I'm going to use my thumbnail to push that in under the cone head, and that just gets it out of the way. Now to add the couple of little bits that are going to provide a little attractant, I've got some ostrich herl. Going to wrap it around the thread, tie it down, get in front, and then I'm going to do 2 wraps of that and hold it up and tie it down. A couple of wraps there, a couple of wraps in front. Trim that off. And then to finish it off, I'm going to take a couple of strands of peacock curl, regular green stuff, wrap that around the thread, and the same thing, tie it down, 2 or 3 wraps. Trying to keep that red showing a little bit, and then tie it down, a couple or 3 wraps, a couple of wraps in front, and trim it off. And then we do a whip finish behind the bead or cone head. And in this case, because the cone head has a little space behind it, I'm actually going to do a dab of head cement, because it will penetrate right behind the cone head. And that's him. Now you can put it back on gallery view or whatever, not non-speaker view, and away you go. Oh, one other thing I do here is I have this magic tool. It's called a popsicle stick with a piece of Velcro, and I'm going to stroke the bunny fur backwards to start, and then smooth it out. Okay. And there's your bunny leech.
I'm miles behind you, Dave.
It's okay. So questions? Any?
I've never seen the ostrich used in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was neat.
An ostrich plume, and all it does is it gives a little bit of a red flash. Where that works good is on any minnow pattern, because it will simulate gills.
I usually use a red hackle there.
Yeah, that would work too. Or
Dave, Dave, do you ever use crystal flash to simulate a sunlight on the leech?
On a leech, no. The leeches that I've seen, again, I'm from Alberta, so it's not the same as here, but and I think they're not a lot different anywhere else. They're a pretty dull color. They don't have a lot of shine to them.
Dave, I missed the bit where you tied on the rabbit strip. You had a V shape in there or something?
Yes. Yeah, again, what you do is you look at the nap on the fur, and you'll see that you stroke it one day, it goes down, and the other way it stands out. So you take the end where it's down, right? When you stroke it down to the back end, you take the back end of the strip there. And then again, about a shank length of the hook, you hold the back and you stroke the other part forward. So you end up with that V that exposes the the leather without having the fur in the way. Does that make sense?
You're looking for the end tip of the leather, yes?
No, the end goes out the back.
Yeah, no, the end tip of the leather, not the end tip.
Yeah, the end tip of the leather, and of course that's the length that you want. Is the leather should be the length of the hook, with the fur sticking out the back. And then when you stroke the rest of it forward, you see you expose the leather. And when you put that down on the hook, you're going to be wrapping the thread down over the leather and not over the fur.
Right. And what's the V?
And then of course what happens is once you're done tying the fly, then you stroke this back and it covers up the exposed leather.
Right. And what has the V got to do with it?
Well, that's what you're doing, is that V that you create when you stroke the back of the strip backwards, right, and where you pinched it off for the measurement, you stroke the front of it forward. You can see that there's right there, and you put that right over top of where your thread is on the back of the hook, and that allows it to cinch the leather down to the hook. So
you're looking for the last bit of the leather, or there's no leather sticking out in the tail, correct?
There is. Yeah, no, that's what you want, is you want that hook length of leather sticking out past the bend of the hook. That's why you find the V.
Can I just make a comment to Dennis?
Yeah.
I've been watching Phil Rowley on his fly tying videos, and what he says about leeches is he always puts a couple of strands of crystal flash. No, sorry, not crystal flash. Flashaboo.
Yeah.
In the tail of the leech for that added sparkle. And he says, don't use crystal flash because the fur gets hung up in the crystal flash, but it doesn't get hung up in Flashaboo.
Okay. I would defer to Phil then, because he is the master of those kinds of patterns. I'm hoping when all of this COVID stuff is over, that one of these days I keep saying to Phil, I got to book one of your trips to bloody Manitoba, and I haven't managed to time it yet. We've always had something else going on, because fishing those Manitoba parkland lakes, he is an absolute master.
Just a quick question. You were talking Flashaboo versus Crystal Flash. Is there something I'm missing?
That's what he was saying, yeah.
What is Flashaboo? I've got Super Flash. That is.
Flashaboo is flat. It doesn't have crinkles in it.
Right.
It's just straight flash.
I have a fly that has crystal flash in it. Where's my camera?
Example, is that?
That's crystal flash, yeah.
Isn't it crystal flash and
Flashaboo? Fly from back.
That's crystal.
Huh. Aren't they different brands?
No, the crystal flash has crinkles, really crinkly, whereas the Flashaboo is absolutely flat.
Here's another fly with Flashaboo in it.
I have one brand that says Flashaboo and one brand that says Crystal with a K.
Yeah, but they're different. The Flashaboo was almost the original version of that sort of stuff. And what it is, it's a sheet of mylar that has been cut in very narrow strips. So it's flat. Whereas the Crystal Flash, like he says, is crinkly. It's not a flat. And it sometimes has little bumps in it. It's almost like spun rather than a piece of flat material that's been cut.
Yeah, that's like this. Here.
You're breaking up there, Tony. So the reason for the two.
Sorry,
So So the reason for the two hurls behind the bead is to give a bit more head than just the bead?
Yeah, it's just to add a little bit of color to the front of the fly. You can. Oh, I saw something online the other day. They're talking about what they call hot spots, and a lot of tyers now, particularly the guys that tie chironomid patterns and caddis pupa patterns, they put what I call hot spots on them, which are basically just a bit of color near the head of the fly. And the theory is that is another strike trigger for the fish.
Dave, that's on top of the white that you put on the chironomid?
Yeah, right on. They put those hot spots right at the front of the chironomid, on the sides.
Some of them put them on the tail too, Dave.
Yeah, sometimes on the tail. But it's just like when I tie pheasant tail nymphs and hare's ear, not so much hare's ear, but particularly pheasant tail and for prince nymphs, I always put a little bit of red or orange thread right at the bend of the hook. And we did some side-by-side testing, so to speak, on the Red Deer River, and about 20% better if it has that little red tag on it than it does if it doesn't. There's something about it that just adds a little more interest to the fish, I think. Something that would differentiate it from the natural, maybe? I don't know.
So you also said that that you use a peacock curl to simulate gills, but that's not the case in the leech because the leech doesn't have gills. That's that red hurl, the ostrich hurl, the dyed red ostrich. And you're right, leeches don't have gills, but this could be a minnow as well, right? Now, another thing you can do is you can tie these bunny leeches with 0 weight on them and use as dense a rabbit strip as you can so that it floats and you can fish it like a mouse.
Yeah.
Somebody's tying with a light shining right where their face would be. It's sort of distracting.
Oh, that's probably.
That's
Colin.
That's Bill.
Bill?
Yeah.
No, I'm not tying. I'm not tying.
Fantastic light.
No, I'm not, Chris. I'm not tying, Christopher. I'm just watching today.
Give me a minute and I'll fix that.
You should see what I've had to do to the table in my living room in order to set this up so the glare isn't coming off the window.
If Bill mutes himself, then we won't get that light shining on us all the time.
If Bill does what?
Mute. You mute yourself, Bill.
No, that won't stop his video. He has to turn his video off.
Yeah.
Sound. That's okay. I'm fine with it. If you toggle back to gallery view while we're all talking here, then it's less.
Is that better?
John, he can mute himself individually. We do that all the time when we're doing our fiddle lesson.
Correct, but it won't stop his video stream with the light.
You guys.
Ah, yeah, you're right there. But it will stop him from continuing to be the center view.
Right. So I've switched to gallery view, so I don't have that problem.
Can you see me still?
Oh, you're
right.
All we see is your light.
Yeah, I see.
There, now we can see you. Much better.
Yeah, but now my light.
Move your camera. Move your computer.
Yeah, my problem is that.
So Dave, question. This is for
ocean for salmon, or is it for creeks, or is it for rivers, or is it for what?
It's primarily a pattern for leeches, but if you tie it unweighted with the really bushy rabbit fur, you can use it in streams as a mouse imitation. And we use them a lot for pike. If you're going to fish for pike, these are deadly pike patterns. And the other one that's really effective is if you tie it with white rabbit strip and tie it nice and big, Dolly Varden, or what we call bull trout, love white patterns. And it's a very effective white pattern for bull trout.
Okay, so I missed you at the beginning. This is for lakes or oceans? It's for lakes, yes?
Lakes. Yeah. It's for freshwater. It's a freshwater pattern.
Dale is using these at Langford Lake as catching fish.
Yeah.
Just a comment, Dave, on your leech patterns. And what Phil Rowley has to say is a balanced leech. And then instead of using like a brass bead to balance it, he'll use a bright red thing, and it begins to look like an egg-sucking leech. But again, that's a trigger for them to bite.
I think that's right, and I think that's why it doesn't hurt to have a little color variation instead of a single color of leech. Like we used to tie the plain ordinary old marabou leech with just green marabou that you wrap around the hook with a little bit trailer out the back. And they didn't seem to work too well. You had to have something else in there to make it differentiate it from the background.
That's why the pumpkin heads seem to work so well for me.
Yeah.
Orange.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the sky is getting beautiful in front of our apartment here. It's getting blue skies and less clouds and warming up, so that's all good.
Little puffy clouds.
Yeah.
Wind's coming out.
Yeah, it does in the afternoon here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a north wind too. So.
Just as a matter of interest,
green version.
I was fishing one of the lakes in the interior at one time, just trolling, and I looked in back of the boat, maybe 10 feet in back of the boat, maybe 100 of these long black, about 6 or 8 inches long, and I didn't know what they were. So I called and found out they call them a horse leech. Really long, very black, and very, very shiny. And I've never seen anything like that before or since.
Dennis, I read up on leeches, and they can live for 10 years and grow to 12 inches in length. I saw one in the interior once that came over to my leg. I got it out of the water before it hit me, but it was at least 8 inches long. They're scary things.
I always assumed leeches were on the bottom, not at the surface, Dennis.
Oh no, they swim.
They are all over.
Yeah, they're all over.
And, talking with Colin there, I have seen leeches 8 inches long in a swamp up by Comox. So, and another thing about leeches, the vast majority of them are not bloodsuckers. They they eat detritus and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah. Anything that doesn't move too fast.
Well, we used to put salt on leeches to get them off.
Exactly.
But the first aid is now that if you do that, they'll regurgitate their stomach contents and you can get infected. So the first aid to take a leech off these days is to simply pick at it. Don't put a cigarette lighter or salt on it. It's the teachings out of first aid for you, removing a leech.
Good to know.
Sounds exciting. You know what used to work for us when we sometimes have it on the dogs is you take a cigarette or a cigar or something, like a really quite a hot sauce, and you put it close to its body. Same thing with ticks, and they pull their heads out.
Yeah, that was the thinking until they figured out that if you do that, the leech or the tick can vomit their stomach contents into you, and that's one of the reasons that they now have tick keys that you can buy at Canadian Tire to remove ticks, because otherwise you can get Lyme disease from the vomit from a tick.
Yeah, charming.
Anyway.
Yeah, talking about Lyme disease, man, we have a friend that lives in Calgary, and he got Lyme disease, but for the longest time, the physicians refused to believe that he had Lyme disease.
Yeah.
They diagnosed it as a variety of other things, but because they said, well, there's no Lyme disease in Alberta. Well, the kid grew up in Ontario.
Yeah.
And they're only in the last 5 years have they started to actually treat him for Lyme disease. It's debilitating.
Yeah, the owner of Magnotta Wineries picked up Lyme disease in Venezuela, came up here, and the physicians didn't recognize it. He had to go to the States to get it diagnosed, and he eventually died from it.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Well, Dave, thank you for the demonstration.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
There's my version of it. Oops, there's my version of it.
Looking good.
I can't see you, Chris. John, I've got 9 photos up here, but I can't get any more. What am I doing wrong?
You need to go to the top right and press the button that says speaker view. It's a toggle between speaker and gallery view.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah, it's like on my iPad will only show in gallery view, mine will only show 9. It won't show.
Mine will only show 9 too.
I'm seeing all 15 of us, 13 of us.
That's good if we got an attendance of 15.
I must be lucky. I've got everybody.
Yeah, that's because you're on gallery view. If you hit the button that says speaker view, then it takes you to the person that's speaking.
Yeah, I've got everybody. It's 9. I don't see. Bill is 10.
Yeah. No, I see all 13.
Are you on a computer or an iPad, John?
Computer.
Yeah, I think that might be it, that the iPads don't accommodate as many.
Correct, they only accommodate 9.
Yeah.
But to see the person that's speaking, you need to switch it to speaker view from gallery view.
Yeah, my daughter said you can pair your iPad to your TV, and that way you would get everybody for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the limitation to the display, I think, more than the computer itself.
Okay. Also, just FYI, I clued in that because we've paid the money for the software now, we're now able to record. So I've missed the first 10 minutes of Dave Robinson's talk, but the rest of it's recording, and I'll send the link out so people can go back through this.
Yeah, I saw the record button show up this time.
So if we're ready for pattern 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll mute everybody except for Dave then, okay?
Okay.
And then we'll save our questions for afterwards. Thank you.
Speaker view.
Okay, Dave, you're unmuted, and everybody else is muted now.
Okay. So, can you see the, oh, my camera's gone funny here. What's happened here? Are you seeing my fly? Oh, there it is. Okay, I just got to switch cameras. Come on, there we go. Okay, so this is the Matuka style leech. The difference is that we don't wrap the bunny fur around the hook shank. We're going to tie it down over the top, and then we're going to hold it down to the hook shank with a piece of wire that's going to be sequentially wrapped over top of the bunny fur. This is more of a minnow than a leech imitation. So we're going to have a brightly colored belly. We're going to have a little more prominent leech, and then we're going to have some stuff that's going to cause a disturbance at the front of the fly. So it's just a little hackle at the front. So it needs a little more material, but the basic process is somewhat the same. So in this case, I happen to have a couple of barrel-shaped cone heads. So that's what that is. It's not a typical cone head. It has a little more weight. Once again, my lead-free wire. I'm going to tie that down onto hook shank, wrap it down. And again, I'm just using that many wraps because I just happen to have very thin lead wire at the moment. I couldn't find the thicker stuff. And I'm going to wrap again back over the top, a few wraps to build the bulk up there. And then I'm going to shove all that weight underneath into the back of the cone head. And that cinches it down on the hook, so it doesn't slide or push backwards. Attach my thread. And then I'm going to go back over and dress the hook. One of the reasons you dress the hook with thread as you're doing these kinds of patterns is that the hook is shank is kind of slippery. And if you put the thread on it, it means that the materials you tie on will have less of a tendency to spin around the hook shank. So now I'm going to put a couple of things on the back here. I've got a piece of silver wire. I'll give it a reasonable length here. Problem with this particular silver wire is it's very springy, and if I don't cinch it down, it comes undone all at once when I finish with the spool, and then I have to rewind it all on the spool. I'm going to bring my thread back up the hook a bit and cinch down the wire. And when I put the wire on the hook shank, I'm going to try and do it so that it lies along the side of the hook facing me, not on the top, but on the side. And I'm going to tie that down all the way back to the bend. Use my little clip to hold it out of the way. Now the rabbit strip I'm using for this is a barred rabbit strip. You can see it's got black highlights on it. And they do that when they dye it, I guess. You can see it here. It's black barred green rabbit strip. And it's not the thin stuff. It's got a little more width to the leather than the last one. And again, to repeat the process that we talked about, I'm going to find the direction of the nap, and I'm going to go to the end of the rabbit strip where the fur naturally hangs over the end of the nap, the leather part, and I'm going to measure it so that it is the entire hook length, and then at that point I'm going to do the thing we talked about, which is making a bit of a V so that this fur that I'm pulling forward and separates it from the fur that goes the back, and it exposes the leather. And I'm going to set that leather right over top of where the thread is hanging down. And because of the fur being in the way, I'm going to pull it with my right hand and put the first strap over. And then I very carefully manage this so that the leather is sitting right smack on top of the hook. Don't want it wrapped around partway around the side. And I'm going to do 2 or 3 good solid wraps so that leather sits right on top of the hook. Then I'm going to come in front and give it a little wrap just to lock it in. Then I'm going to hold this leather strip out of the way. Now, to make the shiny body, you have some choices. This is a white shiny chenille. You can also use this stuff, which is pearl braid. Or if you want an orangish belly, you could use orange. Or you could use orange chenille. You can make a variety of different types and colors. I like the shiny stuff. So like all chenille, I'm going to try and pull some of the crap out of the end here so that it just exposes the ends of the ends of the little string that's in the middle of the chenille. And I'm spinning my bobbin clockwise so that it makes the soft loop go to the back. And I'm going to catch that down just in front of the rabbit strip. I'm going to run the thread up to behind the eye. I'm going to take my chenille, and again, like the last time we talked about, some of these chenilles are a little sparse, and to make them stick together, stick out properly, the little barbs of the chenille, I'm going to spin that clockwise, make it nice and bulky, and then every time I do a wrap, I'm going to give it a little clockwise spin. And I'm going to run this up the shank so that we get a nice, shiny, moderately bulky body. And keep going. Sometimes to make it nice and bulky, I have to wrap over it. So when I get right behind the cone head, I'm going to tie it off. And trim. And at this point, I take the rabbit strip and I pull it forward with my left hand and stroke it back. And then where my thread is hanging, I'm going to hold it with my left hand and I'm going to peel back with my right the fur that is ahead of where the thread is. And the whole idea here again is to expose that leather at the bottom of the rabbit strip. Then I'm going to hold it with the right hand and run a loop of thread over a couple of loose wraps. And then I'm going to make sure that that strip is sitting right down on top of the hook. And I get another couple of good solid wraps in there. And then wrap in front. And once again, I'm going to get in here with my scissors as close as I can to the head and trip off that and use my thumb to shove the leather down in behind into the back of the cone head. And tie it down. Now the fun part. I'm gonna make this little fur stick up, and I'm gonna take my silver wire, make first wrap at the back and underneath, and then I'm gonna separate out a few strands, pull them back with the rest forward, and I'm gonna go into that V again and wrap that wire over with the fur sticking straight up behind. Gonna take the next little bit, I'm going to wrap the thread in that V gap, try and make about a little less than 1/8 of an inch between wraps. And I only need 3 or 4 of these. I'll do that again. And then I'm going to wrap the last one in front, right behind the bead or the cone head, and I'm going to tie it down. Then using the very base of my scissors, I'm going to clip that thread. So far, so good. So now you see I've got this rabbit fur, and I'm going to pick it out with this little magic tool of mine that's basically a piece of Velcro stuck to a popsicle stick. And that's going to pull all of the hair out and make it nice and smooth. And then my ostrich herl again. I just double it around the thread, tie it down, the wire's in the way. And then I'm going to wrap a couple of wraps. Tie it off. Trim the ostrich out. And now the last piece of thing I've got here is a, I don't know what you call it. It's a very webby Grizzly Saddle. And I'm going to tie it in by the stem this time. So I'm going to open up a little piece of the stem and put that down on the hook. And I'm going to tie this so that the convex side faces away from me. And I'm going to wrap the stem down in there. 3 wraps or 4 wraps, and then I'm going to wrap in front to lock it in. Trim it off. And then I'm going to wrap my hackle around right behind the cone head. And I only need like 2 or 3 wraps. Tie it off in behind. This is where being ambidextrous is which I'm not very good at, but having both left and right hand working really helps. I'm going to just get these back out of the way. Do a few thread wraps in there, and then do a whip finish. And I will double that up just to be sure. Whip finishing in behind a cone head is a little tricky, so I like to do a double. Make sure it's in there right. And then a little bit of head cement right there. And she's done. Now you can go back to gallery view. You can.
So I've unmuted everybody. So like Dave says, if everybody wants to go back to gallery view, then we can all see each other again.
Just before you do, I want to show you something here. This is a similar to what Dave was showing you. It's a toothbrush a free toothbrush I got from the dentist, and I put some of that Velcro on the back, so I've got a double tool.
There you go.
Push your teeth in.
I saw a video where
Velcro work on your teeth.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave?
Yeah.
I just say that I've had success with that pattern that you've just tied on the San Juan River right at about this time of year. And I think it's imitating the salmon fry that are coming down into the ocean.
It would, yeah. Yeah, a little olive with the silver body underneath, I think, is pretty effective. So there you go. Any questions?
No. I like that.
Dave, one comment. I've watched a lot of videos on the thing, and you have the best nails of all the people I've seen tying flies.
He's cleaned his too.
And they're clean, yes.
Well, you know, it's this repetitive hand washing keeps them clean. There's no oil on my hands anymore, of course. I don't use cream. Makes it hard to pick stuff up sometimes.
Well, I picked up some good points from your pattern and your procedure, Dave.
Good.
I'd like some feedback on another topic.
Sure.
Freshwater fishing. And quite a few people are going out to the lakes, and we're not getting much, because we're not meeting, we don't get much feedback on what people are doing and how they're succeeding. And what I propose is to send out an email to everybody asking them to give me a report after they've gone out fishing. And then I can report at our weekly meetings and send a compilation of all the replies to the whoever's taking the minutes. Or the other alternative is just to have everybody go to the chat and use that to tell everybody what they're doing. The problem with that is that it means that everybody's getting all that information. And if they're not interested in that information, it may be annoying for them. So I think it's better if everybody sends me their reports, and then I compile it and put it to the meeting. What's your response?
Ron, all you need to do is ask Dale. He's the one that's catching the fish lately.
Well, I know Barry's been out. I haven't heard anything from Barry. I know that Bill was out on Thursday. And
I was out on Thetis 2 days ago. We did a thing. I talked to Brian Palace, and he was out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to Prospect, Langford, Durant's, and didn't get a bite.
Yeah, well, I went to Langford on Thursday to go fishing, and I had my camper van. I couldn't find a place to park. There were so many people parked around the launch site. And I talked to one guy at the launch site, and he was from Nanaimo, and he's driven down a number of times from Nanaimo to fish Langford Lake because of the bigger fish that are in there. It was just nuts. It was nuts there. So I just turned around and came home. And that's that's the kind of information that I'd like to give people if I can get it. So what do you think of the idea of people sending it to me?
It's a good idea, Ron. I have a point. I'm an up and down fisherman, as you know, so I got a few each time I was out there. But Dale Shield is so upset if he doesn't get a dozen or two. And there was one, I was out Thursday, I was looking for you. Dale got a gain about probably a dozen or two, and there's a fellow out there. I don't know who he is. They was telling us a couple of days before he got 45. That's Langford Lake.
So Ron, as a methodology, I think it's a good idea to go with option one. I think you'll get more response than people in a video conference telling them what they've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is your intent to read out this sort of listing so that people can hear and see what's going on?
Well, what my intent would be, I wasn't suggesting a video conference. I was just suggesting an email detailing what they had done.
Correct. Our meeting on Tuesday is a video conference.
Yeah,
Ron,
video. But
Ron, I could send out a letter and say, if you're not going to be at the video conferences, why don't you let Ron know what your catches have been, and what you've been using.
Well, that's fine. You could do that, but I don't have any problem sending out an email asking for submissions.
Okay, you can do that. Just say if you're not going to be at the meeting. Yeah.
Well, even if you are at the meeting, why not send it in, and that way it's easier to compile it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking of just asking everybody to give me some comments about what their fishing success, and then I would summarize it at the video meeting and then send a compilation to the person doing the minutes. Yeah. So they don't have to keep track of it.
It's more efficient.
So Dave,
I'll do that. I'll send out an email then. Yeah.
Dave, can I go back to the fly tying here for a minute? Ask a question of you. Can I see the back of your fly? I want to see how much of the leather shows.
Virtually none.
Sandy, can I ask a quick question before we go back to the fly tying, which is really the intent of this meeting? What about saltwater? Who's doing saltwater? Who can I send my reports to?
Well, Ryan's supposed to be, but Ryan doesn't have a computer and he's really out of touch. There really isn't much happening in saltwater. I keep track of it through the saltwater, the Sport Fishing BC, and really there's not much going on at all.
No, I went crabbing the last 2 days. I was going to send something in.
Oh, crabbing. Yeah, great. Sure.
It just shows more business, more events happening. And yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, back to fly tying. Sandy, thanks.
So does that help?
Thank you. That helped me.
So I'll send my saltwater into you, Ron, as well. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, Dave, I was concerned about how much leather was showing, but I see that you have it showing too, so I guess that's okay.
Yeah, it shows a little bit, but
yeah, it looks longer than mine.
Yeah, this one is a little long, but that's okay. I think if it gets too long, you might get some short strikes, but you can always trim off a 1/4 inch or whatever.
Right. No, that's great.
But Dave, the leather that's behind the curve is about the same length as the shank, yes? The rest of it's just fur sticking out.
This one ended up being just a little bit long, but yeah.
Okay.
I found, not necessarily in freshwater, but in saltwater, if I start getting short strikes, I'll put a trailer hook on, a small trailer hook. Mm-hmm. And I've caught some really big fish on that small trailer hook just because they were hitting short.
Yeah.
What's a short strike?
Well, it just hits.
A bump.
Mouths it and spits it out.
Yeah.
So Dennis, are you allowed to put a trailer hook on in BC?
I think so, just as long as you're not catching more than one fish on a lure at the same time. I think so.
No, you have to cut off the front part.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to cut the front hook off.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like they don't treat it like a triple hook, a treble hook. They treat it like 2 single hooks. So one of the ways to do that is you put a piece of monofilament that you tie on the first hook, and then you let your end hook back out here, and then you cut off the first one after you're done. So the hook is way back here, but it's on a piece of mono.
Okay.
Or a piece of braid. They sell special braid for it too.
Braid, yeah.
Well, that's helpful. I appreciate this.
So any suggestions for next time?
It doesn't have to be you, Dave. It can be anybody, but Dave's great.
How about this one, Dave?
What's that?
Got it's got a partridge. hackle. It's what's that little golden pheasant tail, and a dubbing, whatever dubbing you want to use.
And just a partridge hackle.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy. I'll send you a picture of it.
Well, we can do that, or we could do a basic English wet, which is partridge in green or partridge in orange. Those are typically fairly small patterns, and they're mostly midge imitations. But we could do those too.
That's about doing a mayfly. We're heading towards May.
Yeah.
Well, that's what this will imitate a May.
Mayfly emerger, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a bit of a hatch on Thetis on Thursday.
This has also been a very successful fly. I'll send you a picture of that too, Dave.
Okay, we'll make a decision as to what. Might try doing something fairly simple.
Well, this is fairly simple.
No, I'm thinking depends on what guys have for materials. If everybody has partridge, we could do a pattern with partridge in it. Most people have thread, so we could do simple English wet.
Or half
Mayflies seem like a good idea, wouldn't they?
I could show you how to tie a mayfly in about 5 minutes. So it wouldn't take very long. I could be like the second fly tied.
Sure.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. And if you want to do
a dry fly fisherman normally.
If you want to do at some point, if you want to do a clink hammer, I can show you how to do that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A quick question. You talking about the trailer fly, how do you attach the mono or the braid to the primary hook?
You attach the mono to the front hook, and the way to keep it from pulling out is you use a fairly thin mono, like 10 pound or something, and you actually bring it forward, put it through the eye of the hook, and then bring it back and tie it underneath. So there's a bend, and then it won't pull out.
Thank you. I'm going to try that.
But yeah, clink hammer, we could do that maybe not next week, but another time. I actually met Hans van Klinkum, and he gave us a demonstration on how to properly tie his clink hammer.
I have a friend from the Netherlands who swears by the clink hammer and has given some, and they're very successful.
Very effective pattern.
What does it look like, Dave?
The power, I'm going to have to say goodbye.
It's basically like a parachute pattern with a post with a bent hook.
Okay.
Well, just got news, and everybody, I guess, has heard it, that our trip to Buttle Lake has been put off.
Yeah.
So they've closed it until the end of May.
Yeah.
So what I was going to suggest at this point would be when we do go up there, there's always, not always, but there's occasionally a ant hatch. And I like to have a couple of ant flies in my fly box.
We could do real simple ant pattern. Foam ants. We could do a Chernobyl ant.
Is that a floating or a sinking ant?
Floating.
Yeah, float, yeah.
Chernobyl ant worked like crazy in Russia. For the rain.
New Zealand, great pattern in New Zealand in cicada time. They're good grasshopper imitation as well. So we could do it. We could do a Chernobyl ant sometime. They're fairly easy to tie, but you need foam.
Just to comment on those black ants when they hatch.
Yes.
I've been following this, and I've hit the black ant hatch a few times. The first 2 days when it's over 70 Fahrenheit, you'll get the black ant hatch on the second day or maybe the third day. And you've got about 3 or 4 days of fishing, and then they, for some reason, stop feeding.
Yeah. That's because their stomachs are so full and they can't digest them.
I think that's probably right,
So
yeah.
what I do in that period of time after the 2 or 3 days is I go to something that's a real attractive.
Yeah.
Just teasing them rather than hitting their hunger.
Yeah, yeah. A great, great lake, but it's difficult to get to, is up above Duncan at the top of the mountain called Wild Deer Lake. Mm-hmm. And there's big fish in there. And if you hit that in the black ant hatch, you have a fantastic day of fishing. But it's very difficult to get to. It's a 4-wheel drive operation.
Isn't that on our forestry land that's closed?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's only open on the weekends. And you go in at 7:30 in the morning. You got to be out by 4. And the gate's going to get locked if you're in there after 4. And then you're screwed, as they say. It's a tough one.
Well, I hope to hit Elk Lake maybe next week sometime. I'm just watching the weather reports. And,
yeah, I would think it's about time to give Elk a try.
I was surprised how murky Elk Lake was when I was out there this week.
Turnover.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a spring turnover.
So everybody
Be
knows
murky in a few days and it should clear up.
all the fishing docks are closed. They all know, you all know that, don't you?
Yeah.
Durant's, they're closed, I know. But people are catching a lot of fish off the shore.
Is the parking lot at Durant's closed?
No, it's not. And Lev has been up to Durant's fishing and has caught numerous fish.
On power bait?
No, on primarily leeches.
Oh, okay.
On bottom. I was up there this week in the afternoon earlier this week, and I didn't catch anything. And Brian Pallas was up that same day in the morning, and he didn't catch anything. But again, that was earlier in the week. The last 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, I guess Lev was there and caught numerous fish both days. Well, I think I'm going to log off and try some flies. So thank you all.
all right. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks,
Right.
Dave.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Dave.
John.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.
Hello, Christopher. You just showed up for the first time. Needed about the first half dozen to cancel out.
Because you only see 9 on an iPad, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We'll talk to you Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, I got 2 tied while we were waiting.
Good stuff.
Yeah, again. What do we do to get out of here, John? Just it says exit full screen?
Or just leave meeting.
Leave meetings up on the top. Hit your screen and go up to the top. Or you using a computer or an iPad?
A computer, and it just says exit full screen.
It's the bottom right. There's a red thing.
Oh, leave meeting.
Says leave meeting.
There we go.
Okay,
That's
bye all.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, bye.
Leave meeting, leave meeting.
So we cut out for a couple minutes, John. Was that because something happened, or was it we haven't got the subscription yet?
No, we got the subscription. It didn't cut out for me.
Oh, it did for me. I left the meeting and came back. I was just watching and it cut out.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay. Ira, we'll see you. I guess the meeting's finished.
You bet.
Yeah. We'll see you.
See you guys.